Is anybody home? I'm sorry. And someone said, oh. She quit that day.
Oh, yeah. Are we broadcasting already or? Okay.
Oh. I'm too nervous because it's more over time and it's more over early.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Oh, excited. Give it to you.
Well, it's not.
Swear.
We don't have anything. Yeah, I know. I like to learn. Why am I in here?
Amendments and stuff.
Yeah. I just talked to him afterward because I also got the time. Yeah, and so did Adam and Darla. You don't know. Are you on the lake chat?
Yeah, I saw it to be honest. Like, I'm kind of connected. No.
The project manager.
Oh, okay.
Good, how are you?
Oh, yeah, that's not even, it was, say we got a bus recorder, that's what usually, no, we hired, monthly over again. And that's when I got it. Well, it was like, what, you know, like, yeah, but it's, yeah. Yep, but we got fined and, shoveled and they put a ton of sand on my lawn. I don't know. That's just the whole service that we got, and I was like, what is that all? So, but I guess the state ordinance says any snow on the sidewalk must be removed. Well, okay, but like, what if it's falling? Just be out there all the time. Sorry, I don't know. It's just a lot. Product, so I don't know who that, no. No, I mean, well, here's the other thing, is my neighbor that I don't, he always sells him shovel. He doesn't shovel, he probably has, I don't know, he's having full driveway, he's just looking at his property, so he didn't get it. My other neighbor who also doesn't shovel didn't get it, so I'm like, no. I'm the only one. Yeah, cause I'm good friends with both of them. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that. Also must be removed from the sidewalk.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That is now still over
Oh, okay.
the.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, sure. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Or like for, like a. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Nothing yet. Hello. What's that? Who's joining me? Hello. And Darla. Nice. Bill, how are you? Okay, that's good. Bill, Darla, how are you? Yeah. Right.
We're both deteriorating at the same rate and at the same time, so.
That's not supposed to happen though. It's supposed to be one at a time, right?
Yeah.
Bill's supposed to go first, so Darla can take care of Bill first. That's how it's supposed to go. Right.
It's not mental, it's just me catching up with all.
I think so, big time. You kind of didn't say it. I saw your recording and it was really good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, he really did a good job. He had me to go through it.
Did you?
Bill, I thought Bubby did his job too. Good setting.
Yeah, no, it was fun to do. It was fun. We used to have a little teleprompter, thank God. Yeah.
You don't
Yeah. Who else joined us, phone? We have Bill. Hey, Sean, how are you? Doing good?
We met on Indeed. Yeah. Oh, I don't know either. Oh, yeah. Right.
You don't need to.
Mark, it looks like, yeah, the whole council got those so-called fleet cards there. So there's something hard.
Yes, you have to complete form and you can
Promotion for something. Discount card. Came up with an application. Oh, okay. I found one in Bill's mailbox. Right, you have to send an application. Yeah, multiples of those.
Did you hear anything from Adam?
Oh, yes, Adam has coaching, he is, so it goes. And this is a hastily prepared, copies are still warm. This guy, so the word was very good. I forgot. The meeting was here, so I'll see. Oh, I saw your guys, I saw your car there. Yeah, I was just trying to. I think you're gonna.
Not off the press.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Okay, we will call to order the city council meeting for Monday, March 31st, 2025. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call now.
Bonnie Shmulnis. Here. Adam Steckmeister.
Here.
Adam Wahusky.
Ready? We'll be late.
2 minutes late, he checked in before the meeting.
Carla Leclerc.
Joining by phone.
Mark Bittner.
Here.
Shannon Durfee. Here. Bill Leclerc.
Here.
Doug Grant.
Here.
Tim Petrie.
Here.
Okay, thank you all for that. Since we have two people remote, we do have to do a consideration of any council member request to participate in this meeting from a remote location. Tonight, as you heard, Bill and Darlene there are both remote. So just looking for motions to allow them to join our meeting. Thank you, Mark.
President, I'll make a motion to Bill Leclerc.
Thank you. Looking for a second by Shannon. Any council discussion?
It's great to have you back, Bill. and-
Anything else? Yes, will be roll call vote now.
Adam Steckmeister.
Aye. I'm trying to think yay or aye. Here. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Mark Bittner.
Aye.
Hi.
Doug Grant. Tim Petrie.
Aye.
Bonnie Shmulnis.
Thank you all and welcome Darlene officially. On to number 4, action items. We have a resolution designating May 10th, 2025 as International Migratory Bird Day. Do you want us to read it or wait reading?
You have a copy with you? Oh, heck, why don't you, read it, then our rec director can read it.
Okay, so we'll get a motion to read it and not resolution. Thank you, Shannon. We'll do Bill, and then second by Shannon. Council discussion. Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote again.
Carla Leclerc.
Aye.
Mark Bittner.
Aye.
Shannon Durfee. Bill Leclerc.
Aye.
Doug Grant.
Aye.
Tim Petrie.
Aye.
Bonnie Shmulnis. Adam Steckmeister.
Aye.
Any introduction and reading?
Recognition of International Migratory Bird Day is a component of our Bird City USA designation. The Bird City USA designation we apply for on an annual basis. It's a nice way to market the community to birders and environmental folks and come to the community, be a part of Woodland Dunes and State Park, and all the great things we have going on nature-wise in this area. So yeah, it's a nice perk that we've got a wonderful nature center that helps lead a lot of the activities for these parks, so that City Park Department isn't doing a huge amount of heavy lifting on the programming, and the news absolutely loves doing the work. So with that, here is the resolution. Whereas migratory birds are some of the most beautiful, easily observed wildlife that share our communities, and whereas many citizens recognize migratory songbirds as symbolic harbingers of spring, and whereas these migrant species also play an important economic role in our community, for the insect pests and generating millions in recreational dollars statewide, and whereas migratory birds and their habitat are declining throughout the Americas, facing a growing number of threats on their migration routes, both their summer and winter homes. And whereas public awareness and concern crucial component of migratory bird conservation, and whereas citizens enthusiastic about birds, informed about the threats they face, and empowered to help address those threats can directly contribute to maintaining healthy bird populations. And whereas since 1993, International Migratory Bird Day, IMBD, has become a primary vehicle for focusing public attention on the nearly 350 species that travel between nesting habitats in our communities throughout North America. Their wintering grounds in South and Central America, Mexico, the Caribbean, and the Southern U.S. And whereas hundreds of thousands of people observe IMBD gathering in town squares, community centers, schools, parks, nature centers, and wildlife refuges to learn about birds, take action to conserve them, and simply to have fun. And whereas while IMBD officially is held each year on the second Saturday in May, its observance is not limited to a single day, and planners are encouraged to schedule activities on dates best suited to the presence of both migrants and celebrants. And whereas IMBD is not only a day to foster appreciation for wild birds, to celebrate and support migratory bird conservation, but also a call to action. Now therefore be it hereby resolved by the City Council of Okay. By the City Council of the City of Two Rivers, designating May 10th, 2025 as International Migratory Bird Day in the City of Two Rivers, the County of Manitowoc. We urge all citizens to celebrate this observance and to support efforts to protect and conserve migratory birds and their habitats and community in the world at large.
Awesome.
There you are.
Thank you.
So that is approved that we shared with Woodland Dune and the Bird City program. And already seeing a lot of traffic on the flag.
Awesome.
Next up, item B. I'm sorry.
Consideration amendment to TID 8, Capital Grant, House Park Restaurant Group LLC, to extend certain deadline dates associated with grant assistance for permits and
First off, I'm pleased to report, and you've probably seen it, is underway at 1033 22nd, renovation of that property. These proposed amendments are to agreement for a $10,000 capital grant approved by the City Council back in August. You might recall I came to you last fall requesting a small extension on the purchase closing deadline for the purchase of that property. I believe the original agreement was September 30. Council authorized approving that as it happened on October 14th. The deadlines in question here, which were anticipated to be met at the time of the agreement last August, but a little more time is needed, were originally for completion of the required capital investment of at least $100,000 into the building with capital equipment like pizza oven, fixtures, furnishings, signage, exterior improvement of at least $100,000, which is one of the prerequisites for dispersing $10,000 TID grant. That original deadline date, March 31, 2025. Business opening date was stated the same, March 31, 2025, today. And then submitting a documentation developer expenditures for required capital investment by that same deadline. Proposed in each of these cases that those deadlines be extended out 3 months to June 30, based on a meeting a week ago Friday with one of the two partners in Popstart Restaurant Group and their banker. I think June 30 is a conservative number. They are anticipating being open in May. But let's just put a little breathing room in here. I would just recap to point out that in addition to this $10,000 grant from TID 8, the BIDC has committed, our Business Industrial Development Committee has committed to a $63,000 loan to assist the business. That's in addition to a $350,000 loan from through Nicolay Bank and SBA loan, and a private equity injection. I'm remembering the private equity piece right offhand. There have been no draws on the city loan to date, although we're getting close there. The pizza oven has arrived. It's supposed to be installed on April 4th. There are other improvements ongoing. So again, I think these dates allow a little cushion to make sure things are done timely with the revised timetable. And I would mention, and did in the last paragraph of the memo that came out on this, that the BIDC at its meeting last Tuesday did authorize an increase in amount of up to $20,000, which would take the city loan and bring it in at up to $83,000 to cover additional documented capital costs. The partners in the project have encountered some higher costs than anticipated on the renovation and some equipment that's about 20 years old now, a refrigerator unit that needed some repairs. So they hopefully won't need that full amount. The BIDC is authorized up to $20,000 additional, and all of the city loan would be for documented capital costs incurred. That approval was conditioned on final review of amending loan documents by a committee of the BIDC, and also contingent upon the bank increasing their loan authorization by a like amount, which would be fully capital. So still very optimistic. There's good things happening through there, and opening a little later than they expected, but recommend council approval tonight of extension of the state.
Okay, so we are looking for motion then to authorize the extended deadline.
Motion to extend the deadline.
Thank you, Doug. Second by Mark.
It's great to see the business come to community. Those young men are working very hard to get done. Just get open. We gotta give them that. So,
Did you second that, or was it just a quick, you second and a question? Gotcha. Just want to make sure. Okay. Any other council discussion? Darla, Bill?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I just wanna say yay.
It'll take a little longer.
Exactly.
Pizza.
That's a little easier, isn't it? Then we are looking for a roll call vote.
Carol Leclerc,
Aye.
Mark Bittner,
Aye.
Ken Derby, Bill Leclerc,
Aye.
Doug Grant,
Aye.
Tim Petrie,
Aye.
Bonnie Shunonis. Scott Steckmeister.
Aye. Excellent, thank you for that. On to number 5, discussion items. Update on City Hall elevator project.
Yes, we did have the state elevator inspector out today for what we thought would be the final approval, approvals needed for the elevator project. The approval was not granted, however, there sounds like there's a pretty clear path to getting it done. What it came down to was the lack of appropriate required signage and labels on some of the features down in the control room. So there are about 12 different points where stickers or signage are needed. I would kind of thought Schindler knew to do those things, but in any event, the state's inspector, as I understand it from our head building maintenance person, indicated that if the inspector for Schindler provides an email with photographic proof of those signs and labels being properly installed, it is approvable based on that. We anticipate that by Wednesday of this week. We might still leave it locked up because it's a great fitness routine for everybody who uses City Hall, but certainly proper handicap access. Now, the jury's still out on that. Yeah, but it's a good thing. It's good.
Okay.
It's coming along.
So the camp, it's all good.
It was, yeah, there were some questions along the way about the elevator control system communicating to the fire suppression system, so the elevator is shut down and goes to the default setting at first floor, fire alarm. That all worked fine. Labeling, signage. Yeah. So that is that update. And I think we had $120,000 budget for that, and it had about $10,000 for incidentals related to electrical, and that jury's still out on that one. We will see, and that kind of ties into possible capital fund amendments we'll talk about in just a few minutes. But I expect overall we'll be a bit over, but we'll be within about $10,000 on the elevator project. Yeah, the Board of Canvassers for the election has been, or I'm sorry, Central Count was posted optimistically for the third floor. However, it is being held in the clerk's office, and some temporary walls were erected there to assure the security of that area. Thank you on that.
B, discuss proposed amendments to various city ordinances.
Yes, none of these are for final action tonight. Some of them are things we've been talking about for a while that are working their way toward council action. Some are things that have come up in the context of things staff has dealt with interactions with members of the community or situations in recent months. And we thought work session would be a good time to talk about these. Sean Griffin, did you get my email about 15 or 20 minutes ago with the summary that I've handed out? Wonderful. So I thought this might be helpful. It's either excerpts from the existing ordinances or copies of proposed draft amendments from the attorneys. The first one is related to massage establishments, section 6-9, and the existing City of Two Rivers ordinance language is on page 3. That should be page, actually, each of these is like, that's page 3, page 3 of the copy or cut it off. What I'm recommending, based on conversations with other staff, including the police chief and city clerk, checking with some neighboring communities on their ordinances, is that the council consider dropping a requirement for local licensing of massage establishments, that means business, and massage technicians, that means provide massage services. While such licensing is required by ordinance, and this came up when I got an inquiry from somebody else looking at opening a new business, saying it involved some element of massage. Am I okay for zoning? Am I okay for licensing? I looked at the business zone that the proposed location was, that looked fine. Looked further and said, oh, gee, we have a requirement for local licensing of massage businesses. Get that to kind of we're just starting into talking about the different I did not recall in 30 years the council being presented with an application for a massage establishment or practitioner. City clerk had no forms or licenses on record. We did a quick research find that the state of Wisconsin already has a law where you have to have a state license for a massage therapist or body worker. So the thought is, our neighboring city doesn't have such a requirement. Some cities do. Green Bay in 2023 adopted a local licensing ordinance for massage establishments. Worried about I think what most of us worry about when we hear the term massage parlor, places where illegal activities might take place. We do have an ordinance section under crimes against sexual immorality that addresses massage parlors in that context. And talking with the chief, he felt that if you read it, I won't. It quite adequately addresses the prohibited activities. So I guess since to our knowledge, we've not issued such a license historically, and in the interest of not overburdening businesses, we have 2 or 3 businesses now that offer massage therapy services. Other that we expect will open this summer, and it just seems to make sense to look at making sure we've got some appropriate regulations. And in the attached ordinance starts on page 3 of this packet. You'll see right now we do have this massage establishment license, massage technician and manager's license. Those would presumably go away. Section on regulation of operators and licenses we probably do for a review, and exceptions we probably want to keep physicians, surgeons, chiropractors, trainers while acting in the scope of that sort of thing. This is not meant in any way to wing or starting in Two Rivers. Really meant to say, I don't know, 3 or more existing practitioners say, by the way, we've never worked with now need a license. And that's what we have on the books.
Yeah, we can cover that, as you said, on page 1, where you can't, crimes against sexual morality, we already have that, so if anyone would still take action.
Still prosecute that. I think the reason I just agree, I adopted on that, say, have had some significant problems with massage parlors. Massage professionals appreciate that. But in Green Bay, in addition, it gave them the option of or revoking a license in addition to being able to prosecute the violation. They felt they needed that. I don't think our experience here has shown. Nor do we want that problem. If you with the chief have comment on this,
I was gonna say now. Prior to that, 941 addresses minors, minors, and for 3 involves prostitution area or inappropriate touching. Which many of you, were counselors, but many of you were involved in maintenance. And then in addition to that, if we would have.
So, any questions there? That was just a thought of cleaning up. Sorry if we missed it all these years, but no evidence of ever issuing a license. And on some of the regulations, right now there's an outright prohibition on no person under 18 should be permitted on premises. Well, there are, sometimes beauty shops offer spa services on the side. I believe Violet Inn, and they're not the requesters. When they talk about spa services, massage may very well be offered there. Doing a little Googling on this, hopefully my history doesn't caught me on that. But yeah, oftentimes there's a requirement that if a massage is going to a person under 18, they have parental permission, or maybe an outright prohibition on anyone under 18. Is a little much context of legitimate business. So this was really meant to be introduced, come back within the next month, sometime in April, with actual proposed ordinance. John, Attorney Griffin, do you have any comment?
I know most of what you said, but is that or sure, argument refer to a state performance standards of cable licenses, authority to next day on the local license.
I had something first. Did you get there?
Or is this any other question? But you're still gonna, like, you have a license from the state for trade.
That would be still a condition to operate. And we discussed with the attorneys. Right now, there's like if you don't have the local license, that violation is considered a nuisance per se, and I think we would keep that. Just if you don't have a state license, you're operating that business is considered without proper license. It's kind of like, to say, kind of like it's not that we don't know about that. The state does as much as anything to ensure proper sanitation and a healthy environment that are using the facility.
Are these?
Already existing, is not where you get that in
When the state says they're subject to state licensing requirements, as part of that, does that go back to the county health department for annual inspections? Do we know that?
That I do not know. I don't know if that's an authority the state has delegated to county health or not. We can find that out before we bring it back.
Yeah, Tim.
The purpose of minors. Local for schools, there's a lot of minors that need.
I think think that's a little overboard, and it kind of tells you where this ordinance was coming from. and the existing. Was there a hand up? No.
Yes, I'm looking at why the state maintains, it's actually that, I don't see a, like, I mean, the three, we get, to, and everyone, really came to, and that's already, and I think there's, the locality also, the compliance, we want to do something like that.
That's what I was kind of getting at, just keeping tabs on these places. If Green Bay's in fear of that happening or is happening, however that's going on there. I don't mind getting rid of this, requirement to have all these licenses, but I think we should maintain some kind of authority to go and check if we get complaints of them having that kind of an operation, that we would call, I guess, parlor. I'd like to be able to say, hey, we can spot check at least if some of these activities are going on, so we can kind of shut it down without having to go to the state. And it could take them weeks and months, who knows how long it takes them to get down here to take that. If they're not delegating that to the county already.
It might be, I'm not seeing right now.
Okay, but if they don't, as one method, I appreciate just having that link within there with our ability to inspect based on complaint. I don't know that we wanted to do that. It should be a complaint driven, not
Yeah.
resources. Do it just.
We will bring that back.
That if you have somebody they're not licensed, they're not trained, or their way of thinking or morality might be completely different than yours or mine. So I think that good on paper, in action, I don't think that it would fly. One thing I'm worried about is we went through something similar with the tattoo. And it's like, you know, it's just the way our society is. I think have a bad rep, massage establishments have a bad rep. It's changing for these things. They're not grindy, gritty, tailor on shore league type of thing. You know what I mean? So I do believe that for tattoo and massage, that there's already a mechanism for inspection. I'm pretty darn sure. I mean, it's worth looking into this. Yeah, this is the back of my mind. I think that that's already taken care of.
I would just respectfully disagree on a little bit of that, just because the police department does handle prostitution. And I think that's kind of what we were alluding to as far as the parlor part of this. As far as like cleanliness and all that stuff, yeah, I get that that's not our expertise. But I was more going for if they're running a shady place as far as prostitution and stuff like that, that we reserve the right to come in there, inspect and see what might be going on. And that would be something that the police department would do.
I don't know, like, if we get complaints.
We would be the same.
Yeah, despite if we have something on our ordinance, not legal,
I would say too, that
right?
really want is you want to spot check.
Okay.
Not just complaint-based. You get a court of prostitution, for lack of a better, has to be happening. If we had a court of prostitution, per se, like they do. To elicit that response.
Very good.
Anything else?
I'm looking at this right now, prior to the level that should be preempted. Maybe that's why the question license have. Four, six, seven, really has the ability to like,
Yeah, at least as I understood that, I came across that earlier today. At least if it relates to the method of the specifics of the professional requirements as a massage technician. I think there's some reference that under general business licensing, zoning, there is that ability.
So that's a partially granted, so, my note would just be, the council didn't want to table it, it's guaranteed, because it's modified and, limited just because of business operation rather than, actual, provision of the product.
Yeah, that's like 1997 or 99 law.
You know what number written?
I don't. It's, as far as I know, it's quite a ways back. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll bring a further report back, or
Sexual morality ordinances was for the reason that there was definitely something happening there. And I know that also you see in Facebook, the lack of the judicial system. This gave us a little bit of heat when we get sent back for an ordinance violation. Take something. So that was the reason for all of that. So regardless of what you see in Facebook right now, we're losing that. It's actually increase those violations.
there's, Doug just pointed out, there is a footnote at the top of page 3. Editor's note adopted by City Council, Title 6, Chapter 9, 1981. So if that's the case, it's been a while. Yeah. 40 years. Yeah. Beyond the scope of my employment.
Okay. Anything else? For Shannon, and each team's slot. Anything else?
Now for something completely different, we turn to Chapter 7-4, trees and shrubs. We've encountered some practical questions here that point to the need or at least desirability of some changes. Mike, you want to lead on this? I don't know if I got the summary quite right.
Yeah, on the front summary here, sort of number 1, in the 2. So one of the things that I would frequently get involved with is a number of residents will call me and say, my neighbor's tree is overhanging onto my property, it's gonna fall on my roof. And typically that response to those people is, as the person that's the neighbor, you could bring back that tree that's overhanging onto your property. Now, our ordinance isn't quite so supportive of me, and it's kind of a small way, but a small way in terms of the writing, but a big way in terms of how invested we have to get in these situations. And so if you turn to the forestry ordinances on page 8, we're looking at the highlighted section. Whenever the city forester finds on examination that any tree or shrub or part thereof growing or located upon private premises is a public nuisance, it must be this and this. Those 2 words, must be, put a lot of pressure on us as the city to get involved in some of these private tree issues. What we're suggesting eventually to do is to change that to maybe sprayed, removed, or otherwise abated, because that must be puts quite a bit of emphasis on us to take care of those things when they're on private property, when they're much more nuanced than being very clear cut. So I've had some trees lately that are over the right of right away in the street, they could fall on the sidewalk and they're a private tree, and that's more of a definition of a public nuisance, but the neighbors are also complaining about it, so it gets very complicated quickly. So just giving us a little bit of flexibility there.
So the intent would be to not be stuck in brokering issues that threaten solely the private property. Still having some discretion there, but frankly, Parks Department gets pulled into a lot of neighbor disputes on trees that wherever they fall, it's gonna be on private
I
property.
take a lot of my time, as a city forester, I'm doing most of the policy work, strategy work with contractors, experts and things like that. And Parks and Rec team, the maintenance team is going out and doing the work on the trees. When we get into complicated trees, even in the terraces sometimes, we're using contractors, to address those issues. I've got a situation ending right now where we really get dragged into it of really the likelihood of falling in the public right of way is pretty minimal. But the majority of the issue would be a private issue. So that neighbor could take care of that tree. But we're kind of pulled into it at this point because it says we must take action.
Yes, Adam.
The only thing that I hesitate on the maybe is if we do take action one time and don't take action. That's what I wouldn't like. The public's gonna perceive that as favoritism. You took care of it, this guy, he's my buddy, but for me, you're not. Why you're not taking action with me?
So
I'd rather have it black and white than people or not.
to that point, the examples I've had recently, we've just brought in certified arborists, and they give their opinion on the tree about what should be done with it. And so if they're indicating that it's immediate safety issue, then we must get it taken care of as soon as possible. So it does give us the opportunity, that situation, so in the situation where it's an immediate threat. So that doesn't negate the end of the paragraph here where it says shall determine that immediate action is necessary for public safety. And I'm typically going with these very complicated private trees using a certified arborist that's gonna tell me what's going on.
So can we have it in there that the certified arborist will make that call and it's an immediate threat that we will take action, so to that point?
Yeah, I guess I'll try to add a little bit. Concerns us, people like specifically regions, property owner gets noticed, there's an issue with the tree, and then the city shall from us some sort of action. That occurs so the tree falls over on the tree, and need to nuisances. Actually, also liability with the big action. The city is not have the order to update that nuisance tree already. Right now, private property owner, and the concern of the certified arborist, the need to empire to update the nuisance within days that can are concerned that this might be a lot more usually mandate and on the line that and then liability.
Further to Sean there, the one tree we're looking at, I wouldn't trust anybody else other than a certified arborist to be on site to do the work. Most of our local tree services, they do not have certified arborists on staff. So you've got to go to the busier, bigger businesses typically to have that kind of extra level of expertise to be able to take care of those. And those can take time to get people scheduled to come in and deal with it. Especially in an instance where it's saying, we shall get it done. This is shall abate the nuisance to get rid of our liability and the nuisance. We're like really required to do that within that 30-day window. So that's pretty tall work to be able to get done.
Kind of sounds like a transfer of liability from a private party to the city. Certainly avoid. I guess, Sean, though, and to Mike, I is my other question. I hear what Adam says. Black and white is always better than gray, even though life is a friendship with a lot of gray. What if what if by ordinance, effectively, the city council said, we're taking ourselves totally out of the private kind of concerns. Here's how we define a public nuisance, i.e., there's a likelihood, I won't wordsmith it, but the tree could fall in the public right of way or damage public facilities, public property. But if it's in the back corner, 4 private lots come together and there's no public right of way or anything else within 100 feet or more, not our problem. Resolve it. Got your homeowner's insurance, send a letter to your neighbor, put them on notice. City's not involved. I heard that.
Agreeing with what Greg is saying, I think ourselves out of the private side.
Yeah, the other thing, the confusing piece is when it gets into, it's a private issue and it's a public issue, or it's, what percentage of that tree is a public issue versus a private issue? Or is that tree, any tree could fail, and under the right conditions, the tree could fail, whatever it may be. And our certified arborists can give their best experience guess at if the tree is going to fail. So it's just how much risk are you willing to accept for these situations? One that we're currently taking action on, we're not willing to take it when it's immediate. There's another one that's kind of like a gray area. It's like, okay, sure, that fits the definition of a public nuisance, but the actual chances of it doing something are pretty low.
Stick that on the arborist. Yeah. I mean, it's like going to the doctor. I mean, he gives you a clean bill of health and then have a heart attack. No, I mean, there's no guarantee.
Arborists are also very good at wordsmithing to alleviate errors. And I like it with like that, so.
Oh, yes, I like that.
Yes.
I mean, there are some instances, it seems, where, even if the tree is leaning east, okay, let's assume it fell to the west. It's simply of a height that it cannot hit public property. It can't hit areas where the public would be. It seems it would be just as well to be out of those disputes. If there's any chance, and I don't know, Sean, help us on this, maybe this is the way you define it, but if there's some, if the geometry is such that, yes, that tree could conceivably, a 200-mile-an-hour wind out of the west falls the way you wouldn't expect it to, it just seems there's a way to say, well, there's some skosh of concern about public privately.
Like my neighbor has a tree that's pretty far back on his property, but it's really tall, so if it fell to the north, it would cause a public nuisance and problem, but since it's upright towards the back, it wouldn't be a problem. But he did just lose his other tree, which was.
A certified arborist in these situations, I don't want to get into, right, we're paying $150 for every assessment of every private tree that could be a public nuisance. But then that's when we would bring in a certified arborist, they look at the overall health of the tree, say, yes, this is a really risky tree, this one's not so risky. It's in a good condition. That alleviates some of our liability, I would assume, there. Yeah. I do see some of these, I see a slippery slope in the other direction of as I'm getting dragged into all these different things and doing assessments on all these all these private trees because they just maybe could be a public nuisance, but really they just want the tree cut down because it's over.
And with Emerald Ash Borer continuing to wreak havoc, there are people that they can't afford it or they prefer to make other choices, aren't addressing standing dead trees in their yards. And that's ultimately going to be a problem.
Scott, I think sure, the city has some responsibility to help citizens, houses within that for each other. Private tree in the backyard, which became the suspect falling over and looks like it's in bad shape. They ordered that tree on property, you know, I think in that case, I'm personally responsible for the insurance cost of that fallen tree. I believe that if deemed should be removed by an arborist, then the insurance responsibility for damage of property that had the tree, he's responsible for the coverage of damage to my home. Is that not the case, Sean?
Sean,
My primary concern was that, I wonder if we were interested I don't want to think over his authority, and if we have to do a situation for them, our property owner is using tree on their property, and it's not going to affect any of the private property. You know, it's probably, if the city owns it, for example, the city really in policy, they actually add to that. I think that would be my main. That is talking about that. Waiting. There's a property is not going to affect after this to regulate that. Needs to a couple other properties. Authority, more than how we want to use it. Few more people and the
our surrounding neighbors and other communities, because of the flash flood, there's so many dying trees. As soon as they are getting out of any of those private situations, because there are so many dead ash.
Yeah, I would agree as far as the city that Mr. Bittner brought up, like we deal with that constantly, but the only action that we take is as basically a peacekeeper to make sure that they can settle it amongst themselves. And that's a city issue, two private homes. So what we would do is we would stand by, try to get them to work it out, figure out who's cutting what. The state applies, they can cut whatever's hanging over their property line. But we would take no further action. We don't try to, or we want to.
I've gotten pulled into it because the property owner cut off half the tree and that stabilized the rest of the tree and makes it more likely that it's going to fall into the neighbor's property. So yes, the neighbor could prune it back over top of their property, but the owner of the tree destabilized the tree and took half the tree off. So then I get dragged because there's so much of a chance that it's a public nuisance, and I got to get in the middle of
That's the read on that one you just described.
That's what we like to avoid.
Yes.
Yeah, I think get out of the private. Let them hash it out with the police department, they're good at it.
As Chief Bass walked up.
Yeah, that's why, and that's why tweaking the ordinance, even just a little, just gives us more freedom. You know, that's a private to private issue. It's a meaningful public nuisance issue.
But with a
Extending it.
standard that isn't 30 days and you're out. Because it might still get litigated, but then it was the city's response or appropriate. We're not looking for excuses to drag our feet, not serve the public, but it doesn't always serve the public.
A certified arborist might say it's a monitor. Yeah, the tree could be a risk, you need to just monitor it for a certain amount of time. Or you could prune it, take weight off of it and monitor it. Or it could be, yeah, it needs to be removed, it's probably not immediate danger, but there's like all these variations of what a certain arborist tells us what we should be doing. Some trees can be cabled, some trees can't be cabled.
So the concept, at least we're describing, is try to clarify the ordinance language so the city is clearly out of the business when it's a tree that is deemed to only pose a threat to private properties. But if there is some component of, some semblance of a threat to public properties, not put ourselves in a box with a mandatory 30-day action window. Because again, if it's on the street, most people, if it's a street tree, generally we can get it out of there. Spaded.
Yeah, because in those cases, they're usually either a contractor, not a certified arborist contractor, who can knock that out. If it's under power lines, or some right.
Get it out of the power lines with their crew, shut the street down if you have to. But in backyards, when it's towering over a bunch of houses. So,
So if it's 42 days, make it 42 days if that's what we need.
Well, it just depends on schedule.
I thought the approved system was 42 days.
Because that was how many days it took me to get the current one I have scheduled. From the time I notify, the date of the removal is 42 days instead of 30, what it needed. So.
We trapped that we had X amount of days to connect the arbor. Can we make it?
Go ahead, John.
give us some of that Weasley attorney language.
Notice the property owner and only notice the property owner. Using a certified would, then probably something like 30 days.
How much time do we have to contact the arbor? Do we have anything in there like that?
Well, right now, we don't have anything. We can say if you differentiate in the ordinance, there's a immediate thing or there is immediate thing, then kind of it is as construction. But if it's immediate, I don't think there's a harm in at the arborist.
That's all I got.
That's,
Yeah, I'm
that's,
just-
that's,
I'm trying to understand the lawyer. I think I got it now.
So, we covered the, on the front page, we covered number 1 and 2, basically. Number 3, make clear that planting or removing a tree located within the public right of way or streets is prohibited. Such work can only be done by the city. I had one the other day that a number of city employees tell them, you have to do any work on that terrace tree until somebody comes out and looks at it, and by the time I was there within 15 minutes, just by chance, because I was going that direction for somewhere else, and the person had almost the entire tree removed in the terrace. So it was a healthy tree that's in the city, on city property. So, yeah, we would like to beef up these ordinances a little bit about how that people cannot that trees.
there is a statement in the code, you can't remove a fallen tree or a terrace tree. Can't do that, period. I suggested we add to that, pruning. Again, notify the city, Parks and Rec should be pruning public trees or removing them if they need removing. Yes, to the extent it might extend over the sidewalk and over your private property, you have that right. That's still
Sidewalk,
have
if
the
there's a-
person, sidewalk clearance.
Branches that are down.
Well, then I would suggest
we've
over
been
the
doing
sidewalk.
sidewalk.
I've seen some real, and I never sent pictures, some real butcher jobs done lately on public right of way trees, not by our electric utility. But some opinions vary on that, or public works, but by private citizens. That really went out there and hacked away. It was way beyond clearance. And honestly, this clearance problem, our crews should do that.
mean, that's something that they're gonna be on right away.
Yeah.
Or should the citizen rip their down that's hanging over the sidewalk and people walk their legs or whatever?
Within the last 2 years,
Any of 9 council.
our turnaround time on those plans, very quick. And those are complaint based. You're not always scrapping for those. There's a lot of them across the city, so, yeah, I would love to get them all addressed, but.
And we, did change the policy fairly recently. Public Works and then City Council, that if you have, one of the most common complaints is that street trees, roots heaved by sidewalk. Well, in some neighborhoods, that would mean either we have no trees, we've got big healthy trees that maybe aren't the right species, or the city kicks in on sidewalk repairs, which now we do. So, yeah, sometimes people don't like a tree in front of their house. Well, generally, cities control what happens with trees and terrace area. It's called living in a community. Alternative is called living in town. Some may disagree with that, but you can't have a neighborhood with tree-lined streets and somebody decides they don't like trees and got a gap because the trees the public's invested in a way. So if they're healthy trees, they are generally, if it's a platted public right of way, which most of ours are, it's the property of the municipality.
And when we did the tree inventory in 2023, the forester certified arborist who did that tree inventory assessed the value of all of the public trees as well. So there's a complicated formula, but my understanding is it's pulled up well, and people take them, if you ran your car into a tree, the assessed value of the tree, what you can get back for that tree. It takes in how much air it takes away, how much stormwater it manages, beauty of the tree, all these different factors beyond just the value of the lumber. Well, the tree I was talking about earlier, that tree was assessed at $5,000 because it's a wood tree, it's a lot of shade, it takes knocks down your energy costs, it helps property values, it helps stormwater, all these different things. So we could get in someday if you want the value and the importance of trees, we could do that. But yeah, they are assessed, and it's surprising how much they're worth. Now, Sean and us we can go back and forth on how we actually pursue penalties and fines and all those things. That's a more complicated issue, but we want to protect these trees and manage them well so people are getting out of them.
So we would like to bring language back to clarify things. And I agree. If we're saying it's going to prune, especially if it's going to be pruned, the city needs to do it, and we better be prepared to get out there and do it. Probably.
And the clearance, and touching a little bit on that, the clearance issues we get out there as soon as we possibly can. Big pruning of trees. There are a lot of trees in Two Rivers that need to be pruned, and so we use a contractor, we use city staff. By our inventory, it's going to take a long time and a lot of money to catch up on all the things that take place. Yeah.
But I still think if we clean this up, we do things like must be, change it to maybe, we classify it by a professional arborist, that the tree next door to a house is dangerous and possibly should be removed. Sean, you should check the homeowner's insurance, because that is the homeowner who may be the victim of that fallen tree. If there's a claim that he should have removed it as by certified arborist, I think that would be mind saving for a lot of people in insurance.
I mean, there are varying degrees there. If I'm hearing being interrupted without sending business to a particular arborist, Parks and Rec can say, it appears to be a private tree, we don't get into this. If people are concerned, here are the names of 3 certified arborists you as a homeowner could go to and request an opinion. You might want to share that opinion with your neighbor.
Yeah. An older person living in a house with a giant tree that's hanging at the edge, the ordinance going to fall in your house and you have a baseball.
Yeah.
I think we should help the citizens of the community as much as we can to be safe in their own homes.
Or there's a limited budget, and I don't know if I have one here, to say, okay, this is a private complaint, you have some merit, here we go with discretion again. But, you know, put something in the forestry budget where the city forester or boss, parks and rec director is has the discretion to say, well, you know, this looks serious enough to have an arborist look at it, and that's as far as the city takes. I don't know.
Then is Mike getting called out for all these trees that just saying have an arborist look at it? That's also like a huge.
It is, or it's simply on the website and in the forestry policies. You know, you might want to, private, you might want to consult an arborist, here are some resources.
Right. Yeah.
We'll pass on a solution.
Yeah.
Figure that. Yeah. Homeowners.
And I do when they call them and people have very clear-cut situations, where it's, no, we're not doing that. I usually reference them to the list of license companies and, that are licensed for this.
I mean, I get what you're saying, Mark, but I don't want Frank to go to Jared or whoever else has to go. I mean, he can have it every day. And us as an arborist, if we're paying for it, it's happening to us.
I mean, we don't have to, at home. That's the problem.
That's what I was done with it.
Arborist.
And the owner of the tree is always liable for the tree. Even if they don't have, if need be, the person who's fell on their insurance may cover it up front, but they're certainly going to see it. And so the other insurance.
What I think I hear from you, Mark, is we should have good customer service. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. Try to solve the problem without costing the city responsibility, so, and money to do it. What I'm saying. Let's just take a positive attitude. If you survey your part, you trade on that. If you want to move that service, I don't think it's going to improve.
I dare say that's a given right now, but that's, yeah, it certainly could be codified in the city as opposed to current active licensed contractors in the area. Again, they're not all arborists. Licensed. Okay, that's what we hope to bring back to you for trees and shrubs. Licensing of short-term rentals, starting on page 20 here, is I think what was originally proposed by the attorneys, I believe when Andrew was here for a recent work session, further marked up based on the council's discussion at its February work session. So, Sean, I know this isn't your work product, but are you prepared to walk through this or tag Tina? Okay. By the way, I would say before we get into this, there was one piece of the ordinance changes related to short-term rentals that was related to the zoning code. The Plan Commission at its special meeting in March did recommend the amendment to the R1 zoning, which then references it's referenced in R2 and R3, that short-term rentals be identified as a permitted use. So that's on track for a council hearing and action at the second meeting in April. This amendment probably would be tracked to go on that same agenda. No public hearing required, but council action on the various components. With that, Sean, back over to you.
We talked a little about this, but the change is pretty straightforward. We are setting a maximum capacity for short-term rental to 3+4 additional create a 300 maximum. This is kind of based on the athlete council trying to put that into the models we saw were for every better more pretty consistent anything to little bit more generous. We then, looked at some of the, regulate, lighting and, use of lighting.
Before you go too much further, John, I just have a question. What are we classifying an adult as?
Anyone, I guess, we couldn't find it. What we can do is, this would be, anyone who is maybe adults not for that.
That's what I'm asking, because I can see that being fun. Because all of a sudden, someone over the age of 3 is now considered an adult. If you go and you look that up in the dictionary, good luck. And we just want to define that as maybe a person over the age of 3, or individuals over the age of 3, or however you want to put that, but yeah, 'cause that's very confusing.
Children 2 years of age or younger don't count.
Yeah, I would say get the adults out and put it as individuals.
It doesn't sound like nearly as big a giveaway.
I can count as many 3 to 17-year-olds in there.
We got a house with 10 adults, you know, that's 5 couples, kids, that would be a whole lot of fun.
Anything else on maximum capacity?
Also, that ambiguity there. The next one, we are, rather than specifically describing, as you see in the resolutions, along with, standards, providing whether, saying that the rentals cannot make or interfere with the client's employment of the occupiers of these properties. So that's really a lot. Or from a municipality, there seems to work well. It doesn't mean take care of it. We are controlling, lighting, paper, in short-term rentals, council, more discretion here rather than should. That if it, as long as it doesn't create and we encapsulate, I think our on this.
Sorry. I'd rather get it right now. What are we going to define nuisance? Nuisance are going to be 2 different things.
Yes, every defined term in subsection,
Is that in this packet that we have?
I do worry, I think the council's concern the last time was that the now stricken language was too specific.
Yeah, I mean,
I,
like shutting down.
yeah, but I would join with what I'm hearing from some of the council members that I don't want to create something out here that is very subjective and then the police department's getting involved in the middle of the night. That it's, gee, it bothers me because you know, there are different degrees to which people can be bothered. There are different thresholds.
Look up all your life ordinances, before one meeting, you know, the one before this. And that word trespass is in there quite a bit. I don't know why the word trespass is in there. Maybe makes people all go to church, I don't know why. But anyway,
This is like trespass against us.
I guess I'm just trying to say, why would that be so wrong? Like, they didn't go into detail necessarily for the other. That was a big deal. Your light's not trespassing.
Okay, so the members already blood bath, really draft, based on that. So I guess the intent here would be, correct that wrong, you would, the, I guess, short-term rentals from, the trespass, neighbor properties, or, I guess, is, how do you want to do that?
Well, I would say, you know, maybe after a certain time at night, maybe it's 7 o'clock at night, or when someone is occupying that house. So we just don't mind if we have lights just on for no reason. We don't want, I don't personally want to take away from people. At the same time, that there's gotta be a cutoff point for some of these neighbors who don't want, you know, spotlights and all this other stuff in someone's backyard because they want to have fun. The residential district either, but I don't want to say, hey, have all your damn lights off and don't you dare go outside either. I just want there to be something in there. I don't know if it's a timing thing where, you know, make sure it does not trespass, or maybe it's not being rented out. I mean, again, the complaints came from, it seemed like one Airbnb where the lights were on, it seemed like all 12 hours of darkness. But all the hours of darkness, and they're just blaring all over the place for absolutely zero reason. And I think we just need to somewhat address that and how you craft that up. So.
So, yeah, okay, that's a quick one taken, and we'll be, so we can bring back, you know, a few times.
I have a question. I think outdoor lighting is really a good policy for all. But why does it just have to be short term? Is it correct, not trespassing neighborhoods and, you know, not like escaping from the yard can be disruptive to taking. So why are we focusing just on short? Rental?
That certainly could be the case. I was going to talk about this. It was a hard in the direction. It would be most this would be incorporated to more than
You're correctly, John. I've probably twice now discussions among council, not disagreeing on personally with anything you're saying, where consensus was at those meetings, no, apply this just to the STR.
And then, because otherwise, if we change it to try and do something with the short-term rentals, you know, everybody in town is guilty and have to go buy all the lights, right? Yeah. We don't want to do that.
I guess my only concern is violate a lot broader than the 56 structure around.
Yeah, but if your light is trespassing, they can come and threaten to ticket you. I've been in that situation.
So, what is there in that? Anywhere, not maintained using merit does not create a violation. That's right for the year. What? So if B, section B, which I'm looking at right now, you tell me that it could not necessarily short-term rentals, like even home owns the house to private property.
No, this is just for short
We're
term.
talking about short-term
That's where we're starting. That's just our starting point.
Something
regular properties, and I was trying to get it in my,
Yes, you do have things where you can't directly point plans to neighbors' property,
so that would be.
but it's rather specific. Pointing down where the issues that were coming up was more of like the distance, and I know better, Bonnie brought up trespassing onto people's property. So you have a light that's shining downward, so that spreads out. It's kind of the issue that was brought up, is you could have a lot of these lights that aren't necessarily directed, beam wise at the neighbor's house, but it's still affecting them.
Somewhere else, an ordinance.
Well, I think we're all subject to that. That should be correctly, yeah.
You can't purposely with China a light. Problem is though, I could live next to you, and this is the example that was brought up. I could have like fancy bulb lights hanging above my patio, and they don't directly point anywhere, they point everywhere. And those could be annoying at 24 hours a day to the neighbor, if I live next to you.
And that was the case of the fence pole. The property of site. An STR.
I don't know specifics, but
Yeah, that's what we're trying to get rid of. You know, a lot of times I get is, the pain is, it's not always the property, there's no one at home always. You know, and then if there is someone there, it may be a vacation rental. They don't really have control, or you can't just go start breakers. It's not, you can just go talk to your neighbors or something. You may not even know what the neighbor is.
There's some general language. I don't know that it's highly specific either, and you may have looked at it, Sean, in our site and architectural plan approval ordinance, and that only relates to new commercial, industrial, and multifamily development, but at least it's something, and I'm sorry, I was looking for what's required there, but not finding it right, tip of my fingers. But it talks about not having significant impacts on adjacent residential. Oh, a lighting plan. I'm somewhere in chapter. It's not zoning, it's in the building code, title 11. Site and architectural plans have to include lighting plan, showing location, height, style, wattage, lumens, and lighting patterns for all exterior site lights. Well, maybe that's to comply, that's part of your application. Complicated, but for your SDR. Exterior lighting should be located, oriented, and shielded with an intensity so as to illuminate only the building or lot without adversely affecting activity on adjacent building lots or traffic on streets and highways. Emission of exterior light should be directed away from nearby residential areas, and exterior light shall not flash, pulsate, nor impair or hinder vision on public street rights. I don't think we have any neon flashing lights or anything like that. Yeah, they do. There's one at City Hall that's strolling right now. But directed away from nearby residential areas, I get that if you're going for zero cutoff perimeter lighting. But what about bare bulb decorative lighting, like half the pergolas and patios in town have around them? You know, $20 a strand at Menards when they're on sale. Yeah, pretty much sure how those bother people on adjacent properties. Sorry. But I'm not sure, we don't speak to that kind of thing. A bare bulb with an element, even whether it's LED or incandescent, shines out in all directions.
Well, my point is, at least we're sensitive that.
I mean, is there a consensus, or are people comfortable with the existing language that's there in B now, the single paragraph? Or?
I think it's a lot better than it originally read. With all the 1 through 4, I think it reads a lot better. I'm just not sure about the quiet enjoyment of an invitation. the enjoyment? Does it have to be quiet
Is that
enjoyment?
that a kind of a term of art, Sean? Quiet enjoyment?
That's what we go through our, we need to, as the survey.
Okay.
We can make that a little more,
I understand what you're saying, I just a little bit, just clarifying that. I have one more thing, sorry, Adam. This is going ahead a little bit, but we don't have, there's not vacant between all the short-term rentals. So that is something that needs to be looked at, sorry. Come on. Just ruined his head. Gotta get the hygiene situation taken care of.
Right, I love
Adam, wait for that.
Yeah, no kidding, me too. Just kidding.
Yeah, I think there are options.
I'm worried about the height. Yes. Take those out, Sean.
Yes.
I have no problem with number 4. Being in there. I don't think it's unreasonable to cut that light off between 11 and 6 either. Again, we do it to other businesses with noise. I don't see it being unreasonable. For lights, especially seeing that we do have points with it. Not as if
to
we're
address those bare exposed.
Number 4 is about cut off light fixture.
I have a problem with that. It'll make it easy on the police department, either they're on or they're off, and don't have trespassing or anything else, they're just off. No, there's no discretion, he goes there, he sees lights.
Any lights?
Well, that's because they must be shielded.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can still be on, they just have to be shielded.
They can't be visible. In your residential property though.
Oh, so that it's up like this, so just find some.
I think you still want, especially in an unoccupied property.
I mean, if you have motion and stuff, yes. You're like, with the exception of security lights.
Motion second.
Or porch light, I'm okay with that.
Security around under your eaves.
Yeah.
You keep lights pass down. Yeah, I take lights to be like the film in the ball, something analogous to that. Yeah.
Porch light, security light and motion lights, that's great. Yep, yep.
Yeah, figure it
Or-
out.
I like that at the time. We do that constructively, that'll just make it, shielded time is the time, I like the 11 p.m.
It does seem.
Yeah, but I guess shielded is pointing out, you can't see the shoulders.
I can describe it best as just a shield that's coming over.
Yeah.
Just that-
I've never seen it, but if you had catenary lighting around your patio, the outer edge of the bulb, so they were visible off the property. Might be a whole industry. That's the idea, though. It's not glaring out.
If we can keep number 4, and at least let's start there. If there's still some problem, we can work from there. But I think putting that in there will at least alleviate these catenary light or whatever lighting you call this crap that people put in their backyards and their gazebos and whatever else.
Medicine lighting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be more,
String light, yeah, variable swing light.
Okay.
So you're saying that if they have like swing lights, you want them off at 11? If they're not shielded? I don't know if I like that, because what if I'm having people over and I'm out past 11 on a Friday, and then I have to shut them off?
noise ordinance.
But I mean, I can still have people. As long as. I know, I think, all day long, all night long. I can have a quiet get together, yeah, believe it or not. I can stay out till after 11. I don't want to turn my lights off because it's 11. So I guess that's my trepidation about it, but like, mine are only like a little lights. I can
Yeah,
hear.
affected by just these.
Right, well, and I'm just saying, like, if it's just like mine, just quiet lighting, it's not really affecting, anybody, and it's 11 o'clock, like, boom, I wanna go back into the river, it's gonna make me, go to bed at 11, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, our noise ordinance solves the same thing. No boom box, no, nothing, zero.
Well, it's from the point of the noise to the property's edge.
And you hear it go. Right. I can go to my property line and I can hear you, you're in violation.
You can talk. You can talk.
Right, I can talk, I can still talk out there.
Yeah.
Right.
So what's the difference if you don't have your string light? Dark.
Yeah.
Well, you have your security light
Don't
on,
talk
yeah.
in the dark. Well, if play ordinance against that, that'll probably be a problem with remote lighting and fire lighting and if there's close to a structure or something. So I mean, like,
I mean, at the same time, I would like to be the citizen next to these places.
I guess I would keep calling the police until, the owner got shut down or something, but I'm just saying that.
You don't have it in there. You can't.
What I'm saying is at 11 o'clock, I don't wanna go in and turn off my lights just because I understand what you're saying, is that there's a bigger problem. But I don't think string lights are a problem, and I don't think 11 PM is a problem. Some people think it is the problem. But I just don't know about 11 o'clock being that finite cutoff.
You still have lights, it's not as if.
Have like torches and other things, or I guess.
Security lights, if you have shielded lights.
It's not really a light, and I guess it would go against it, because it's especially everything.
I don't have any of those lights in my backyard, and I can still see them.
Look out there. Oh, werewolf.
Hand lights are on, just stop it.
Right, I'm just,
You just have to shut up.
I'm just trying to say is that I think 11 o'clock is the first cutoff time.
I'm not arguing with you, but at the same time, we're talking about. And this is the intent of the council, I would just say from the historical standpoint, I would agree with maybe Tim and Adam, both bringing it up, that I think it needs to be consistent with the member. Because really, you're talking about the party time. So I think if you're moving towards that, it should be something consistently enforceable, so it's not going to be different rules for one thing and different rules for another. So in other words, like 11 o'clock till 6. Otherwise, weekdays till 10 o'clock.
Okay.
I'm just offering that up as an argument. It's confusing, it doesn't get enforced either, and people are also.
Not to make it worse, but for that type of lighting, would it make sense to have some lighting? But now I know we're only talking right now about SDRs. But does that extend to Christmas lights? Cut out Christmas lights, where the where the filament is visible, but, yeah.
There's a new, permanent holiday.
That's right.
Those are like
The ones-
I don't think most people are gonna call it Christmas lights, I don't think most of I mean, all I'm trying to do is address problems that I hear from not only most of them are about that same house. And the pictures are very visible and show that.
And the problem we keep coming back to is most of us identify with, okay, maybe I host a gathering 2 or 3 times in summer. What the heck, we wait a long time for that. But when every weekend is kind of a party weekend, that does distinguish the property.
Especially when there's no one there. You know, it probably if they would shut the stuff off when no one's there, there'd probably be a problem at the beginning. At least as big of a problem as every night. From what I get, I don't know, I don't go there and check it out every night. But it seems like they complain, and again, multiple people complain that it's every night, whether there's someone there or not. And I think 11 o'clock is, I want to go in at 11 o'clock now. But you don't have to go in at 11 o'clock either. It's all the lights that go on, you stop it, and direct them down. They open. I don't have any of these lighting and it's doable.
Well, they have a 6-foot fence around their backyard. Right, like, all the fence, like 3 feet.
Yeah.
And that's all out. I think if they kept them within the fence, it's awful.
Right, it's excessive, I think, but then how do you define excessive, or, you know, I get it, I understand where you're coming from. I understand everybody.
I think that's a good point. We feel that they were just down below the fence line because
Yeah.
they shielded from the neighbor. If you go inside at 11 o'clock, still have those same exact call times, just they're over 6 months. There you go, there's their all.
So you have to build a 6-foot fence now, Shannon.
But you also don't.
I don't,
Right.
and I don't have any problems. And I don't have any problems with neighbors complaining.
You're able to talk to your neighbor, and that's the difference that these guys
I
don't.
understand that. And I understand too, like, I think our problem is, or one of our issues seems to be that we don't have contact information for that short-term rental person.
I think we do.
Or we do.
We do.
Okay, so then,
But it's
like-
not against the ordinance.
Yeah.
You can ask them.
I guess like, what I'm saying is like, you don't know your neighbors, I mean, like, you know, they don't know how to get a hold of people.
He has a neighbor.
I could just be like, hey, Adam, turn your porch light off.
It's courteous for this, and we work together, and I would take it off.
I don't know if that's happened or not. Quite honestly.
He has a 60-watt bulb, you know? Yeah, right?
So I'm hearing a general consensus for B with the addition of the old 4. That was unanimous. Maybe some further debate on the hours that applies. Is that about
That's the most critical part of it.
The hours.
what to add for it?
Oh, yeah.
And Chief, help me out again. 11 PM is what sort of this?
Yeah, so summertime is what we changed, whether it's pretty much consistent with all the other ordinances. We're here, sidewalk cafes, everything we try to make. Not that long ago, I would suggest just from an enforcement standpoint, that we being specific to SDRs to make it more keep it consistent with that, like, so I think it's from Memorial to Labor Day. And if it's 11 o'clock, otherwise it's 10 o'clock. So those months.
Anything else on this one?
That's what you'll see. Second meeting in April. That's the lighting part. The next one is simpler. Section 4 is just, mentioned. Section 5, there is a change. And this simply relates to what has to be posted at the property. So still requires proof of a current inspection by the health department, current issue list, license issued by the city, a copy of the city's noise ordinance and short-term rental light ordinance, maximum capacity, and contact information. I guess that's already in there for police, fire, property owner. I assume we would list both. I mean, everybody ought to know 911, but every answering machine you ever get at a healthcare place or anything else. If it's an emergency, so first, 911 plus the non-emergency number. Yeah. Yeah. I guess in the state of panic, maybe people don't, but that's what they tell me.
Why were we calling them SDR? Take a hole.
Yeah, section 4 should be a bullet.
Yeah, it does. I'm not recalling if elsewhere in the ordinance, John, it says where you need to post that.
Would you understand that?
So it seems you want it somewhere in proximity to the primary exit, or I'm just making it analogous to a hotel room.
Yeah, I would say
Or
control
it
by
is in
the
the
door.
hotels, right, yeah.
City, after some way you can see
Yeah.
from the outside.
That's right.
So then we also get a license, because we see a lot of activity in rentals. And then when we get that license, it's in violation of city regulations.
I want it in the closet of the spare bedroom or somewhere in proximity to.
Could we do that, Sean? Could we have it? License discreetly on the outside? There's questions about it.
I would put it on the inside.
No, so.
Or right, but then anyone can rip it down.
And some other things they get paid for the.
I'm
Right.
trying to make it easy.
You know, but you want people on the inside to know the numbers.
Yeah.
That's true.
It's like say, both.
First, I'd have it on the front door. I mean, that's real. Front door or by the phone in this case.
Yeah.
We don't really have phones.
Phones anymore.
And you don't have to enter the phones.
Conspicuous place within the property.
As you're saying on the outside. On the inside.
Yeah, right, yep.
I get what you mean though, Dennis.
I would teach them the step outside and have to say, hey,
No,
what's
I-
that emergency?
Just to see if it's a short term rental, then the other people have to go in on the door.
Well, once you're there, you would know, because if we're, ordinance, light ordinance, you want them to be able to see it.
You want asking for, like a license. Well, and you want the rules on the
I
inside.
say, we have the room. Wow, we got, some people think over 600 short-term rentals. I know 36 licenses, tax, legitimate license, we do 550 so. License number.
Or maybe just post the number of the license on.
Or this is right, I guess. For the police to be able to inspect these properties. By to see it is.
License number on the door. Like on the left, top left corner of the door, that would be able to reference.
That would be, if that's suitable to everybody. To identify the property. No, really, many. Narrow this problem.
They're not licensed. I mean, why would they put a license? We have record of all the licenses.
Yeah, 37.
Yeah. Joseph.
But if it's 50, and constantly a different mix of people there, you know, they're doing something that's legal. And then we can pin that down.
We can already do that, Mark. I've already looked up the number. The actual number of cases. There's no reason for me to have to, that we're criminal or we're manipulated in any property.
You are adding your.
Well, so anyone can say, Jeremiah and John, all the incidents there, I can look at it.
I think we covered that.
Give me the side.
I came up with. I didn't say one that was actually. Right. Actually, equal for it, so.
I don't know how you determine like the primary entry. An STR, but it just seems you can put it on the interior side of an exit door or on the wall within 4 feet of that
So I would consider that primary door.
Or at least pay for it. Well, if,
I would actually add to it, anything else that would be short term and not department related, be more of a code violation anyway. So that's going to follow up with. It was like, how many adults are staying there? Well, they can see who is staying there. That would be a matter to try to determine who. Or square footage.
Okay.
anything else for rentals?
We got it covered there. The only other one, and I'm sorry, I did not reproduce the ordinance, so the draft that Dick Sean had prepared, but on this area of, under nuisance abatement, we do have some changes that we need to do to get the notice provisions on tall grass aligned with the other notice provisions, and that's kind of a work in process. We want to keep the notice period on tall grass at no more than 5 days. And there was some wrinkle in the existing ordinance language. I'm sorry, Sean, or Chief, I can't explain right offhand what the problem was that we're trying to rectify there.
So describe the 5 days, notice, and then refer back to.
Oh, yeah.
Was that the existing ordinance or the draft that we got? Right, but there's an underlying problem we were trying to address.
I believe it was the execution for writing, the time for notice and, because we made, destruction of not complete 934, property and into 968, was described as a notice.
So we want to comply with the statute, sure to keep, because grass grows pretty fast when it finally grows around here. Keep that active. And remember, when it's a violation, the city's got the right to go on the property and levy a charge against the property owner. Or you can't just give notice once. We really had hoped to do that. Hey, it's spring, grass grows. But each time it doesn't have to be noticed to the property owner. Yeah, we want to keep that as expeditious as possible. That will be coming in front of the council as well. I think that covers what we have done. Each of them sometime in April, like our second meeting. So that's that. That's that.
We discussed proposed budget amendments related to capital.
I don't have a handout on this, but one area, a couple of areas within our various capital funds. One where we did borrowing last year for capital projects that I think, as it turns out, more resources needed is TID 12 for the bridge on the Washington Street Bridge. Remember, we entered into that project. We expected we were going to be at local cost, not just widening the sidewalk, but constructing a barrier and making some other changes that ultimately DOT didn't allow in the design review. We borrowed $330,000, expended, I'm estimating, or using my memory, spent less than 80 on the sidewalk widening that and the design work to that. We still want to fund out of that pot of money 2 sets of pedestrian activated signals, one at Washington, one at Madison and Washington. Those have actually come down in price quite a bit, largely because nowadays they're solar powered, where you're not having to cut wires into the pavement. I think that was about 30,000 per location. Yeah, versus 50 or 60 we were looking at before. So there might be, again, round numbers, $150,000 or something that could be allocated elsewhere. Where do we have needs? One that's become apparent, we're trying to get some competitive quotes, is the control for the audio system in council chambers. Control unit that sits out of view back in the closet. It's 10 years old. It's failing. That is about a $25,000 cost installed. And that's pretty important. The elevator, we may go a little over, but like I said, I don't think that's worth it. The other thing would be if truly there's more resources in TID 10 that we need. We had talked about concerns with the fund balance, the stormwater, which even doing this year's project out of cash, it's be over $500,000, but we might want to shore that up some, maybe say some of the day work that's for storm sewer borrowing to be repaid out of project income there, rather than money just advanced by the stormwater fund, which we still plan to pay back out of income from lot sale. I don't have that for you tonight, but I just wanted to sort of give a heads up that that would simply be reallocating some existing borrowed money. That was money that was borrowed not to be repaid out of our debt service, but out of a TIF. We'll have to be careful of that as well. You don't want to build more
Do you have an
tax
idea
burden.
of the state treating and stormwater security that goes back into
Matt might be able to speak to that. We talked the other day about what we, with this studies, I forget the total TNPL loading studies, that's really going to make a big difference in our stormwater permit refresh. We're going a little afield, but it does relate to yeah.
Right now, the grant that we received last year regarding taking over our whole stormwater management program, we're actually meeting with the consultant next week to review where they're at and where we ultimately grant with current TNPL standards, which are more than neutral stormwater permit. As far as, I mean, we have to do some more projects, but until we get to the completion of that study, know exactly.
So that may very well be back. I can, if we have some finance through that committee, back to council. But that's it for that one. Item D, I just wanted to bring up again. I don't have any great proposed solution to it, but we had a draft development agreement that a lot of time was spent on with CR Structures or a Confluence Group for the so-called Eggers downtown site. That's the 2.325 acres outlined in red here. This was the Eggers downtown plant site, minus the 1.1 acres that became a stormwater pond on the upriver side. Yeah, on the upriver side of it. By the way, yeah, the 22nd Street Bridge is that with the top. Their proposal, since we were dealing with that, didn't happen, wasn't finalized. The city has closed on 1303 19th Street, which is the former Eggers warehouse building and adjacent parking lot. But I've been reaching out to some other developers about this site, and we really don't have any specific criteria. We don't necessarily want to set our sites too high, but same to do that. We don't want someone proposing 3 single-family home sites here or something. Confluence development, as proposed, was $22 million and 71 units. Well, that didn't happen, but that was, say, a pretty high density, high investment project. Not on the first building. It was entirely residential. We got them to say that on a second building, But I would think at a minimum, you'd want to see, and this may be a referral to CDA, maybe a referral to the Finance Committee of Council. I would think on better than 2 acres, we'd want to see something in the 30 to 40 unit range. You know, if you look at decent, and I assume council consists with its goals on market rate apartments, condos, you could be spending per unit there anywhere from probably 160 to 300,000 per unit. Arbitrarily said even 200,000 per unit. $8 million investment. I just think we need some, if not absolute criteria, goals for the development of that property. Probably still retaining an easement as was proposed with the confluence along the water side. So there's public access, future walkway or future dockage. But that's the extent that I've applied any real thought to see this coming back to the council. If we're going to be talking to people about, hey, would you like to do something with this property? To articulate what we can find.
I like the apartment condos, minimum protection, like, put up 5. We're gonna rent them out, so it's apartments, stupid.
You haven't heard anything from none of those?
No, I did reach out again. It's been a while. I reached out last week saying, engaging some other folks. Haven't heard from you for a while. Any interest? I don't hear anything. I'll follow up further.
The rates come down, it'd be nice to see them.
Well, we
That
love
was a
it.
nice
We all loved it. Brought density. Downtowns need density. You need people disposable spending. Yeah. So.
But the property didn't overlap that part of the river.
Yeah, I just outlined the parcel. What was proposed in the approved site plan had something like 30 feet or so along the water edge. It was narrow. It retained public access along the water edge. Because heck, you've got that north of there with the pond site. City doesn't own the Hamilton property. I hope someday we can be guiding that development. But remember, we designed 17th Street Bridge back when it was designed about the 11th to accommodate a walk going underneath it, west side. I guess I'd put this also under in April. I'd like to get some criteria on this. And I may bounce it off on outside planning. We've got some money in the planning and community development budget.
We have a lot of architectural financial. Developed into.
There are
In some of that, some of that.
There were some earlier concepts, yeah, were lower density on confluence, but they still put a premium in. The other thing you'd mentioned, Mark, you know, maybe the unit count for residential is a little lower, but I'm real biased toward having some of that first floor commercial. That was the hard part. That would really enliven that area of the waterfront. It could be some commercial activity mixed in with it. Ground level oriented water. So it's time to get this back out there. That's all I have.
Okay, then looking for motion to adjourn. Or do you have a question?
On future agenda, are we gonna address the brought up by citizens?
Yes.
I wanna listen to you.
Right.
I apologize. I had to mention bringing it back for this work. We'll bring it to one of the meetings because the next session will be in May.
More we, 8 o'clock, 5, with the, personnel committee.
Yeah, tomorrow we're at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock in the hospital room.
Now we
Got a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Next session is hearing none. All in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, guys. Meeting is adjourned.
Second the motion.
Yeah. Hey, guys.